Hello and welcome to Bits That Begin with B. My name is Jim McCoy and I'm here with the silent B in the background, Deb Bowling. Hi, Deb.
Hello.
And with my beloved wife, Nancy Werlin, who is today's special guest. In today's book bit, Nancy will tell us about the life of a writer. But before that, we'll do our tidbits. The random B tidbit is a fun fact, and it's about Deb. Long after we decided on the themes and name of this podcast, you pointed out to me that your very name means bee.
Yes, indeed.
Makes my head explode.
Deborah.
Deborah is a variant on the Hebrew name Devorah, which quite literally means bee, as in a honeybee or a bumblebee. I knew you'd be good in this role, Deb, but I didn't realize how fundamentally suited to the podcast you are. Our birding tidbit is about the woodcock. This is a funny-looking bird that heads south for the winter, but returns in late February to New England to breed. It can be found in the Mississippi Valley and most of the eastern U.S., in southern Canada. Basically, wherever you have eastern hardwood forest, you can have woodcocks. And they are these wild, funky-looking birds with this wild, funky-looking strut. Do yourself a favor and Google woodcock. Put woodcock bird, because otherwise I can't be responsible for what might pop up. But they have this really funky strut. And last week I led a walk at the Ipswich River Wildlife Sanctuary in Topsfield for people to hear them and see them doing their mating flights, which was really cool. The problem with that is that it all happens after sunset and the light is already failing and it only gets worse. So it is hard to spot them, but if you do, it looks cool, and you can get the show anyway by just listening for them. By the way, you don't need to go on a walk like the one we did if you want to see woodcocks. All you need is a good patch of forest adjacent to a nice clearing. So they'll spend all day just sitting very still, looking like leaves in the forest, and you will not spot them. You might almost step on one, at which case it will burst into the air loudly and scare the crap out of you.
Are they small, short-legged birds?
They are smallish, short-legged birds, so smaller than a chicken, but they're not tiny. So there's something there, but yeah, they're smallish and short legs, and they just kind of creep along. But they will stay very still all day until about 20 minutes after sunset, and then they'll make this kind of peent sound, we call it, just kind of a buzzy bzz, bzz. And
like a bee.
Something like that, a little different. You'll know the difference. And then they'll do their thing. But all you need to do is find a place with a decent set of woods for them to roost in all day and hide in, and then an open area where they can show off for each other. So, for example, your local school might work perfectly well if there's a stand of woods next to it, as there often is. So, yeah, I encourage people to try. I've just randomly trying spots. I've had a very good success rate, and not every time, of course, but sometimes I just say, that looks like that might work for woodcocks because there are some woods and there's an open space. And sure enough, if I'm there, weather permitting, 20 minutes after sundown, and 20 is an estimate, it's not magic, so don't, synchronize your watch.
And sorry, one more question. Is there a time of year?
Yes, it's a very good question. So here in Massachusetts, they show up, the first vanguard shows up in late February, and on a mild night, they'll do it. And they'll do it all spring. Someone was telling me they had them doing it on Memorial Day weekend. So I don't know when the end date might be, but basically it's the spring. But yeah, I've always gone and done it in February, March, April. I haven't kept trying to do it in May because I get distracted by all the other birds.
Mm-hmm. And one time you took me to see woodcocks, and there was a little parade of the little chicks.
Oh, yes.
What time of year was that?
That was actually after they had bred. So that was probably late June, early July, something like that. Probably June. So they were right in the parking lot, and yeah, that was cool. All right. Our Being Your Best tidbit is about articulating who you are, both personally and professionally. And I'm not interested in your LinkedIn elevator speech. I don't need your job title. I want to know, who you are, what floats your boat, how you operate, so that it transcends job titles, so you can apply it to your job search or what role you take on at work. So once you know what your talents are, your motivations, your tendencies, and by the way, the latter two are more important than the first one. If you practice something, you're going to get good at it. And if you love something, you're going to get good at it. So I'll give you an example. I have reduced, I've had lots of time to think about this, but I have reduced who I am and what I do to a simple phrase that I'm a communicator and an abstract problem solver. And if I'm doing those two things in my work, I'm happy in my work. And if I'm not, I'm kind of usually not. So it really pays to know how you operate. So Deb, do you know who you are?
I don't know who I am because I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to be when I grow up. But I think the thing that comes to mind is listening more openly, listening as openly as I possibly can. And that doesn't mean just I'm listening to you talk or I'm listening to Nancy talk. It's listening to what's happening around me and maybe looking at choices I have and looking more intently. And that's a different kind of listening, or listening to what people say. I find that if I take the time to listen rather than think I'm listening, I get a lot more.
Well, you are a good listener, and I can vouch, and that has helped you professionally.
Yeah, you can learn more if you listen more.
And also in your customer relations work, that's all about listening.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So, and Nancy?
I thought about this a little bit, and the thing I come up with is going to sound a little odd and unusual, but I am the kind of person who lives almost entirely in my head. And that has a good part because it means that as a writer, I can live in my imagination. I can sit down to work on a story and look up hours later, and I haven't even moved. And so that can be a very good thing for my creative process. But it can be a difficult thing to be a person in the world living in my head. The metaphor that works for me about myself is think of a balloon. And the balloon is the head. And then there's a string, which is following along behind the balloon. And I'm afraid that is my physical self-image. It's kind of odd.
Well, I can vouch for your remarkable ability to lock in and edit out distractions. So I know how to break through when I need to, but also I can just let you be, and you won't get distracted by all number of things.
Well,
so
but I
cool.
can be walking down the street and basically barrel into someone because I don't even notice that they're
that's
there.
That's why I steer when we walk together.
It can be very embarrassing.
All right. I encourage everyone to articulate kind of how you operate, who you are, what makes you be your best, and do it at as fundamental a level as possible, and then you can apply it broadly. All right. Well, that brings us to the main theme of the day. Our book bit is about writing books, and specifically about the life of a writer. And so, of course, as we've said, we have here my beloved wife, Nancy Werlin, who will tell us all about how she came to be a writer and how the writing life works for her now. Welcome, Nancy.
Thanks, Jim. Just a little bit of background. I have been a published writer for about 30 years, so a long time. I write mostly young adult fiction across a wide range of genres, from contemporary to fantasy, romantasy in some cases, historical, and also suspense thrillers.
This is my opportunity to brag because Nancy won't do it for herself, but Nancy has been a finalist for the National Book Award in Young Adult Fiction. She has won an Edgar Award for mystery suspense.
That's quite something.
And she has been on the New York Times bestseller list.
And still, I have a day job
Yes.
as a technical writer at a software company.
Yeah. So tell us about why you have a day job.
That's part of my story. It's something I feel pretty strongly about. In our society, creative people are told, you want to be a success. And we tend in our society to equate success with money. And we also have an idea, and you see this on things like American Idol, that, you should give yourself 1 year to make it. Well, as a creative person, you kind of need a lifetime to make it. And make it means not necessarily the big financial success, but having a life in which you get to be that creative person, if not every day, often. And so I think set up your life so that there's always room for that creative person that you want to be and the creative things that you want to do, alongside the essentials of having a life. You might want to get married, you might want to have kids, you probably need a job in which you're going to earn a living. Don't say, I'm going to give myself 1 or 2 years to make it creatively, and then I'll just throw out my creative dreams and instead go ahead and sell out to the man, or however you want to think about it. No. Think carefully about setting up your life so that everything can run in parallel.
You've done that very well with your work situation. You were very shrewdly negotiated a good setup for yourself.
I did. I realized early on that my writing skills could also be applied in the commercial world. I'm a technical writer at a software company. I like software. I like computers. It's also a job where there's hardly ever a technical writing emergency. So I worked full-time for a company when I was first out of college. And then I had enough of a resume so that I could negotiate a 30-hour-a-week, 3/4 time position. And for most of my career, that's what I've done. Software companies normally treat their people well, give you benefits. And so I've been able to have that extra day or so a week to focus on my writing.
Yeah, you didn't mention that you cram it all into 3 days, which gives you 4 days.
Yes, I worked 3 10-hour days at my job. And I've been very fortunate to have found a setup like that. It's been my observation is that once you have that first job or two and you make connections with people that you work with, once they know that you're a good person to work with and they value working with you as they move on to other jobs and other companies, oftentimes you can rely on them for references and referrals.
And the other thing is you were creative in your negotiations with them such that you could come out with a schedule. I don't imagine it was the first thing they thought of.
No, it really wasn't. But sometimes if you ask what you want, ask for what you want, people will consider it.
Yeah.
And sometimes they will give it to you. So there you go. So I've done that. And it's worked out very well for me and given me time to write.
And well done, yeah. As you said, the writing doesn't make most people rich, so keeping that day job is good. I've seen a lot of movies, and the writers always have these expansive, airy houses on windswept cliffs overlooking the ocean. And I can't help but notice that our residence does not look like that.
It really doesn't. What do we have, 1,000 square feet?
Something like that, yeah, a little more than that. I hate to brag, but we've got more than 1,000 square feet.
Yeah, maybe another 40 feet.
But yeah, and congratulations on doing a great job. Of course, I've said this to you before, but you've done a very good job of figuring that out. How did you get started?
As a writer?
Yes.
Well, when I was a kid, going way, way back, it's back to the living in my head. I read books all the time, and I loved books. And I really wanted to be in them. And again, I could be so absorbed in what I was reading that the real world drifted away. So I was fortunate in that from about 4th grade, when I realized that books were not written just by dead people, but that actual live people did this, I knew that writing stories was what I wanted to do. I was always making up stories in my head. I was an English major when I finally went to college, and I never thought of myself as anything but a writer. That said, it was really scary to try to sit down and write my first novel. I negotiated this part-time job at that time, and I was definitely going to be a writer. And I bought myself a computer, and I set up an office in the apartment that I had rented in Somerville, Massachusetts. And I closed the door to that office, and for a year I never went in there. And I started lying to people. They'd say, "So how's your book coming along?" Because I had told everyone I was going to write a book. And I would say, "Oh, writing is really hard," which was
True.
just a way of giving the impression that I was
Not-
actually doing this hard thing.
That was not a lie. It is really hard.
It was a
Yeah.
prevarication for sure. I was working on a mystery novel in which took place at a software company, and I had a guy being strangled by local area network cable. You can imagine that I wasn't having a great time at that particular job right then. But what I realized then was that I needed for my first novel to write something that was a little more personal, something I cared about. I came to understand that I couldn't just decide I was going to write about something and go ahead and write about it. If I didn't care enough, I wouldn't be able to put in the time that it takes. And a book takes me 3 to 4 years in most cases. I have to really care about those characters and their situations. They have to be real to me. They can't be paper dolls that I'm moving around on the set of my ideas for the plot. I have to really care. And since then, well, I care intensely about every book, and I bury myself in it for those 3 or 4 years that I'm working on it.
Well, I've always admired the way that you write books that you want to write rather than... So you do hop between genres because you write the book that's in your head rather than the one you think you're supposed to write next.
Yes, and that's not necessarily great for a career. My publishers have sometimes advised me that I need to concentrate in one area. I did try. I wrote 5 suspense thrillers, and I enjoyed them, but I was being pulled somewhere else by the end of that. And I still think about the fact that I wrote a historical fantasy very early in my career, and it sat in a drawer for 25 years. It actually was most recently published. And I love that book. I found it in my file cabinet during the pandemic. I pulled it out, I read it, I loved it again. And I sent it to my new editor, and she published it. So that was thrilling. And I can't help but wonder who I would be as a writer if I had pursued that historical fantasy yen so long ago. On the other hand, I don't regret the other books that I wrote. I think they're absolutely lovely.
Well, it's like your children.
They are.
You're supposed to love them all equally. No, I love that story about pulling it out of a drawer. And by the way, this just in, that doesn't always work that easily or that well. We have a writer friend who was struggling to get a book published and expressed bitterness that Nancy was able to just pull one out of a drawer.
Well, I talked her down.
But the reason it worked was because that was an act of passion. You wanted to write that book when you wrote it, and it showed.
I remember working on that book longhand in the New York Public Library when I was on a visit to New York. And I just felt so writerly. Here I am in the New York Public Library in the reading room with my yellow legal pads. It was great.
And that's very cool. So what's the thing you would like writers or prospective writers to know that they don't know, other than what you've already said about
the writing game in terms of publication has changed very much since ebooks were discovered and invented, and independent publishing, as opposed to traditional publishing, is very important right now, and it may very well be the best path for a number of creative people right now. Traditional publishing is in a bit of a commercial crisis, trying to make a living. There are many, many reasons for that I won't go into. But now you have the option as a writer to take more control of your career, to be your own publisher, to be your own publicist. And for many people, depending on what kind of book you've written, that can work out really well. I have so much admiration for a lot of the romance writers who have come to understand that they can publish themselves and do a better job of it than traditional publishers were doing by them. The same thing is beginning to happen in the suspense thriller area and in horror, particularly. A lot of horror being published right now that is first rate is being published by small indie publishers and individual writers. Amazing stuff is happening in the indie space. And I would encourage people not to think that their definition of making it as a writer needs to mean that they're being published by Penguin Random House or HarperCollins. Those days are over, at least for now.
Well, yeah, it's certainly not the same money that goes into the book launch or the tour. It's definitely not as romantic a life as it used to be.
And those traditional publishers don't really know how to market books in the current landscape.
Yeah.
And that all goes back to your first thought, which is, don't expect right out of the gate, don't limit yourself to 1 year of leaping into this, because it may take some ingenuity and inventiveness and looking around to see how you can
And the
perpetuate
landscape will always be changing, Deb,
Yeah.
too,
Yeah.
is the thing. You can't be in any business for 30 years and not see a lot of change happening.
it. It's normal.
It's normal, and we have to be ready to move with it.
Yeah, and this gets back to understanding that who you are, and if you want to be a writer, you can write, and you don't necessarily have to think only of how much money you're going to make or what kind of success you'll have. I can speak to this in that I've self-published 3 books on that are essentially self-help books, and I've made very little money off of them. But when someone tells me about the impact the book has had on them, that's really cool. So you have to decide that, oh yeah, I need to produce, I need to get this across.
And any kind of creativity in your life, Deb is a musician, is nourishing to your entire life and to your soul. And you don't want to turn your back on that.
It's
It is
absolutely
important to include. Go ahead. Yeah.
It's absolutely true. It can frame a day. It can frame a mood. It can frame how you want to express something in words, even though it's music.
Yeah. Yeah. Same for art, podcasting, however you want to express yourself. And there are lots of ways to do it and lots of ways to gain an audience.
Yeah, this concept of success and defining what it is, I think it's too easily tied to some sort of monetary or visible entity, and not success in the fact that you're able to communicate, you're able to express yourself, you're able to do the things that foster you being a better person in the world.
That's exactly right. And it is incumbent upon you as a creative person to always be cognizant that there's going to be a lot of pressure on you to redefine this financially. Your mom may say to you, "Are you making a living at this, Nancy?" And you have to be able to not let that hurt you. Did it?
Well, this has been great. Well, thank you so much for agreeing to do this.
Thank you for having me.
And it's been a lot of fun. That wraps up this episode of Bits That Begin with B. Again, I'm Jim McCoy, and the silent B in the background is Deb Bowling.
Hello.
Thanks to MMTV Studios here on Main Street in Melrose, and thanks to our friend next door at Hannah's Brewing Company. And of course, thanks to our special guest, my beloved wife, Nancy Werlin. Lastly, thanks to all of you for tuning in, and I hope you'll join us again soon.